First and foremost, just offering all honest praises, respect, acknowledgement, and thanks to the great King of the universe, to the God of our fathers, to the God of Abraham, the God of Yitzchak, and the God of Yaakov. Thanking him for all things and thanking him for everything. I bid you in the tongue of our forefathers, Shabbat Shalom Nicole.
Shabbat Shalom.
Please be seated. Thanking the Most High God for life. Thanking him for strength. Thanking him for food, clothing, and shelter. Thanking the Most High God because he is good and his mercy endures forever. Thanking the Most High God for your lives. Thanking the Most High God for his kindness.
Amen.
Thanking the Most High God for the kindness that he showed my teacher, Hamore Mishael, ben Yisrael, and men like him. Because without individuals like that, I don't want to say men, without individuals like that, a lot of us who came around looking for something wouldn't have had anything without people like that. So we're going to be going through the book of Ezekiel, chapters 7, 8, and 9. So what I'm just going to ask for Rabbi Benjamin to get ready to do a question and answer period or something. And my goal is to be up here for about 45 minutes. I know that that's my goal. If it don't happen, don't sue me. I'm just telling you that's my goal. But I know that these are long days and the breaks are long, and then to sit and listen to somebody talk for an hour and a half could be a little bit difficult sometimes. So I'm going to try to keep it to around 45 minutes. So the fact is you got 3 chapters, and to try to go through 3 chapters individually in 45 minutes is going to be very difficult. So there's a couple of major topics that I want to touch on, and that'll probably be at the beginning and at the end, and there'll be a good amount of reading in between. One of the first things that I wanted to talk about, just a little bit of current events, so I'm sure we all know, we all heard that the president of Haiti was assassinated. Oddly enough, they said that 4 suspects were killed. Last I heard, they had 3 in custody. One of the 3 was an American citizen. You know, this is the type of stuff that
Sounds about white.
Right, sound about right.
White.
I'm trying to be politically correct. I heard what you said. I did hear what you said, by the way. But you know, the fact of the matter is for these types of coup and assassination attempts to be going on in 2021, it's just crazy. But it just kind of lets you know that there's a lot of different things happening. If you could just imagine, he was in the president's house and he had his own personal security, and this must have been a heck of a team to get past his own personal paid security in order to kill him, and shot his wife. The kids were able to get away. I think I heard that his wife had passed, but I'm not sure.
Yeah. It was in Miami last
Yeah.
I heard she passed.
Yeah, so I thought I had heard that she passed. To kill him and his wife, and from what I understand, the children got away. But this is like a president of a country. This ain't like, yeah, this is a sovereign country. This isn't like some, this is like some gang beef on the street, or is it? But without going too far into that, I want to talk about the historical references related to Ezekiel, and I want to talk about the historical reference related to us. So Ezekiel, and I'm just going to prepare you. Like, if you expecting for me to have something real nice and sweet to say during any of my portion today, it's going to be very difficult for me to find something like that, because right now the Most High God is upset. And the Most High God is at the point where nothing is acceptable, because the manner in which we acted as a people, the manner in which the children of Israel acted, was completely unacceptable, and the Most High God is upset. So one of the things that I will not forewarn, but for those of us who think that the Most High God is a all-forgiving God, and for those of us who believe that the Most High God is an all-merciful God, for those of us who believe that there are things that you can do and it's never going to matter because God is always going to forgive, and God is always going to be sweet, and God is always going to be kind, and God is always going to find and be on your side regardless to what you do. Talk to me after you read these 3 portions. Because at a certain point, we should realize that the characteristics that they gave us about God here, that's not the characteristics that God exhibits in the Holy Scriptures. It's two different gods, two different sets of characteristics, two different gods, two different all around. So that's what you're going to find in this portion of Ezekiel, right? So, but I want to talk about the historical aspect of us for a minute. So Chief Uzziel and Crown Prince, they talked this morning, and Tees, they went through a couple of different portions of history, and the tribes, they came in, right? So we know about everything that happened in the wilderness. And they came through the wilderness, and they went into the land. Now, what they did when they got in the land was what it was. But the goal of what was supposed to be when they went into the land was they were 12 individual tribes that went into the land, but they were still a part of one nation. They were still all a part of one government. They still all reported to one central figure, even though that they were 12 tribes. And the reason that I feel like that's important to discuss is because the division that came from 12 different groups of people, the division that we still see amongst us as a people now is glaring, and you got to kind of understand, well, where does the division come from? Because obviously the division didn't come from anything related to Torah. Any division that we had then or any division that we have now is strictly related to us and what we do. Don't put our division on God. Don't put our division on we were 12 distinct tribes with 12 distinct sets of characteristics. It has nothing to do with that. Any division that we have is because of us. And the reason that I want to touch on that and the reason that I want to press upon that is because we need to understand here and now that the division that we have amongst us is clearly what's keeping us in the position that we're in right now. And I think the problem is we don't understand that we're actually divided. Because we think in our minds that just because we can hold the Shabbat with somebody else, that means that unity is on the forefront. I can just tell you that it's not. Because unity is more than being able to tolerate one person or one congregation for 8 hours. Anybody who's ever been married, you know that as a matter of fact. So, throughout our history, you had a lot of different points. We went in as a set of 12 tribes, one nation, and what you saw different historical references and different historical events that caused us to be divided. You see a couple of chapters into Judges, you had Manasseh fighting with Ephraim to the death, to the point where they recognized the difference whether you said Sabolet or Shibolet. If they caught you, they killed you.
Right.
And those is brothers. 12 tribes into Judges, right? You have the tribes that were warring against Benjamin because Benjamin protected those who had raped the young lady.
Right.
Tribes warring against each other. More division. You had Judah and Benjamin fighting with each other because of the whole situation with the kingship from Saul through David, from Saul to David. And you had them fighting amongst them in those cases. And then the biggest part of the division that we had is when you had the northern kingdom and the southern kingdom, and they were fighting against each other, and they were hiring other nations to fight against each other. And from then, we're still divided today. And we talk about unity. But the reason, and so I'm going to stop and I'm going to say I pray. I hope and pray that the Most High God is with my words, because I know the things that I want to say and I know what's in my head, right? But I want to make sure to come out right, because I don't want people to get offended by what I'm saying. I want us to kind of understand the position that we're in and where we need to be to really become unified and not just talk. So that unity that existed then, this unity, is still very prevalent and apparent now. Right? Let's just think about it like this for a minute. And let's just talk about the East Coast. You got what? 20 plus or minus congregations, right? You got 20 plus or minus congregations that is looking to maintain or purchase 20 plus properties for them to be able to hold service, right? And yet, the funny thing is you got 20 plus congregations looking to maintain 20 plus properties rather than figure out a way to maintain one economy.
Come on. Teach.
Because obviously if 20 congregations are looking to maintain one economy, that's obviously easier because everybody can eat. Everybody can eat. But then the question becomes, why can't we maintain one economy? That don't got nothing to do with God, nor does it have anything to do with Torah. That has to do with me and you. And that has to do with my issues versus your issues and his issues and the other 17 sets of issues that we can't come together to get like one economy. We can't come together to get like one place or one building because all of our resources are divided amongst the different things and our own different agendas for what we're looking to do. But what does that mean for the children that we're trying to raise? Because that's what we all live for, right? We all say that we live in order to make sure that our children have a better way of life. Am I right or wrong? Right? We go to work and we work hard because we want to make sure that our children are fed and that they're comfortable, and we take them out of certain neighborhoods and certain things because, listen, it's death everywhere. And you know the most precious commodity that we have is them. So why can't we get along and figure it out for their sakes? So I just want to let us in on a little secret, right? I don't want us to think that just because we talk unity, that our children don't see division. Because as much unity as you talk, you look at the children and you see that if you talk to the children enough, you'll clearly see that the children don't see unity at all. All they see is division. And so what happens is we as a people right now are trying to maintain a system that's broken and divided. And that system that's broken and divided is congregations. God didn't send 12 congregations in to all fend for themselves. So I just want to, when we're talking about it, we're going to talk real talk, right? When God sent, when we went in, there wasn't 12 individual congregations that went to fend for themselves. We were all supposed to go in together. Nobody was supposed to relax until everybody got their land. Am I right or wrong? Everybody. That meant we were all supposed to go in together. That meant we were all supposed to be able to help each other. And then that meant we were all supposed to be able to relax what? Together. Not 12 congregations trying to do 12 different agendas and 12 different things. So I want us to think about this. For those of us who are in my age range, in that 35-ish plus or minus age range. Think about, there's some people looking at me like, 35-ish, what? You? That's all right, don't worry about it, just hear me out. Just hear me out. Think about how long it took us to explain to the generation that came before us that some parts of what was happening wasn't working. Just think about that. How long did that take? How much progress did we make in doing that? Because you still have people from generations, the generation before us, you still have them that are fighting the same things that this generation is trying to explain and say, listen, we're not saying everything is wrong. We're just saying some things need to be fixed. But in that generation's mind, we're all doing fine. And so we're having a hard time. We've made some progress. But how much progress have we actually made? So now, as we consider that and how much time and effort we put in to try to get them to change small things, my question becomes, for us, are we really listening to what the generation behind us is trying to explain to us that maybe needs to change? Are we really listening? Because surely there's some things in our generation that need to be changed. Am I right or wrong? Because if it's not, if our generation is perfect, then we should have been far further along than this. I would believe. So, and again, I'm not saying everything is wrong, but I'm saying there are some things that could possibly change. Can we all agree with that? So, then the question becomes, when our youth are talking, are we listening to them the same way we wish that the generation before us would have listened to us when we were trying to explain certain things? Are we listening? The last few mouth tears that came up, and by design, we tried to have a whole bunch of young people come up because we want to know what's on their mind so that we can try to figure out how to reach a generation that we can clearly see that we're losing. You can look at our youth and see they are disinterested. Is it just me? Can you not look at the youth and see that they disinterested? Look out in your congregations, right? Maybe we might not be able to tell now because COVID, which was supposed to be a good thing for us, and it was supposed to be a method in which we would be able to pull resources because most of us was able to save money during COVID. Or we should have been able to anyway. So COVID should have been a time where we were able to pull together resources and be able to pull money together and be able to do something together. Except COVID really hit in March of 2020. So you're in July. So what is that, a year and 4 months? So a year and a quarter. No progress. And what you actually have is people who are now sitting home, and Shabbat has become like a sports bar during playoff time. Because you have 3-4 different services on 3 or 4 different devices, and you flip the channels and you focus on which service is popping at which time. And the children are disinterested. Because you look down and you see them playing with the phone, and you see them sleep, and they might be home, and they might be, and the children are disinterested. And so my question is, if we all recognize that the children are disinterested, and I'm not saying all of the children, but we recognize when children are disinterested. So what are we now doing to try to figure out what needs to change in order to get them to be interested again? Because that should be a part of my job, our job, am I right or wrong? Should be. We're going to go into the portion. And again, I'm speaking in the manner that I'm speaking because as you read, you're going to see, if you've been reading from any point up until now, you're going to see that God is upset. God is angry. And so you're not going to see the all of the good things that God might have spoke in some places because God is upset. And as you go through these 3 chapters, you're going to see a God that they told us is supposed to be compassionate about everything. And then you look at the things that he's supposed to be compassionate about, and you try to figure out well, if God is so compassionate and if God is so merciful, why are 10-year-old children getting shot in their homes and dying? Why are our people getting shot in the street every day? Shooting each other every day. Did you see the video with the girl, and she had the two shooting at each other, the dude shooting at him, and the girl is trying to maneuver to protect her little brother. Broad daylight. We God people, right? We God's people who know the truth, right? What we doing about that? So I'm trying to show two different aspects of it. One, to speak to the fact that we have an obligation to do something about that. And two, to show you, well, if God is so merciful and God is so compassionate, how God letting stuff like that happen? And as you go through, as God is speaking, I swear to you, as God is speaking to Ezekiel, you're going to see that all of the things, the hurt that Ezekiel sees, God is like, I'm not going to have pity. And that must show for the all compassionate, the all merciful, the all kind, for him to get to the point where he's not having pity, that must say something. Whenever you're ready, sir.
We're in the book of Ezekiel chapter 7 verse 1. Hallelujah.
Hallelujah.
Moreover, the word of Yahweh came unto me, saying, And thou, son of man, thus saith Yahweh God concerning the land of Yisrael. An end. The end is come upon the four corners of the land. Now is the end upon thee, and I will send my anger upon thee, and will judge thee according to thy ways. And I will bring upon thee all thine abominations. And my eyes shall not spare thee, neither will I have pity. But I will bring thy ways upon thee, and thine abominations shall be in the midst of thee. And ye shall know that I am Yahweh.
One of the things that I want us to take from this is you are responsible for your own actions before God. If you see what God is saying, he's saying an end is coming for the four corners of the land. Now, obviously, they're talking about the land of Israel right before we went into captivity, and when the king of Babylon actually came and started taking people. At this point, this is when the king of Babylon started taking people from the suburban areas that were around Jerusalem. Because all of those actually those were the ones that the king of Assyria didn't take. So these are the ones that, as Nebuchadnezzar is coming down from the north, he's taking the cities that the king of Assyria took. He's taking the cities that the king of Assyria didn't take. And at the end of it all, he's going to take Jerusalem. But in everything that God is saying, he's saying an end is coming near, and I will send my anger upon you, and I will judge you according to your ways. Come on.
Thus saith Yahweh God, an evil, a singular evil, behold, it cometh. An end is come,
Just
the
one.
end is come.
Just one. Come on.
An end is come, the end is come. It awaketh against thee, behold, it cometh. The turn is come unto thee, O inhabitant of the land. The time is come, the day of tumult is near, and not of joyful shouting upon the mountains. Now will I shortly pour out my fury upon thee, and spend my anger upon thee, and will judge thee according to thy ways. And I'll bring in upon thee all thine abominations, and my eyes shall not spare, neither will I have pity. I will bring upon thee according to thy ways, and thine abominations shall be in the midst of thee. Ye shall know that I, Yahweh, do smite.
Come on.
Behold the day, behold it cometh, the turn is come forth. The rod hath blossomed, arrogancy hath budded. Violence is risen up into a rod of wickedness. Nor cometh from them, nor from their tumult, nor from their turmoil, neither is there eminency among them.
So, and again, I'm going to let him read most of this because most of it is self-explanatory and it's going to be repetitive. The moral of it being God is upset. But the reason that I stop right here is because it says, behold, the day come and the turn is come, that the rod has blossomed, arrogancy has blossomed, violence is risen up into the rod of wickedness. Because that is what one of the major things that actually started to set in, which caused us to not be able to listen to each other and not be able to work together once the arrogancy started to set in and once the violence started to set in. And the violence came from the arrogancy. And the arrogancy came from the fact that the way the law reads is that it says you're supposed to love your brother as you love yourself. You're supposed to love your sister as you love yourself. But as the Maftir brought it out so eloquently this morning, if you can't see love for you when you look in the mirror, how are you going to learn to translate that to somebody else? You constantly beat yourself up. You don't love yourself. We don't love ourselves. We beat ourselves up. So what are you going to do to other people? And that's what he's showing. And so the arrogancy kicked in, and the violence kicked in, and the things that started to happen with the violence and the arrogancy that kicked, you allowed things to fester. You know, when you fail to talk about things, like Chief Uzael touched on this morning, that silence now becomes complicit. So, for me to stand here and speak and read a psalm and talk about how good God is and not acknowledge the fact that what? A high percentage of our youth are having functioning issues right now because they started smoking weed at a young age. Am I supposed to not talk about that? Am I supposed to not talk about the results that's going to come from that? And we want to say that we've gotten better, but guess what? How much better have we gotten when we as parents, we saw that the previous generation started smoking real early and that didn't do them any good. So how can we expect that it's going to do our children any better? I know we were all happy when they legalized weed because they said, yeah, now they're going to let our people out. You're missing the point. A 12-year-old mind is incapable of processing itself on its own. Much less when you start adding chemicals and it's not even really weed anymore. It's chemicals.
Right.
And we want to stand up here and clap and sing and act like that does not exist. So, I'm not saying let's find out why. What I'm saying is we need to recognize and talk about the fact that we have a problem. We need to recognize and talk about the fact that we have a problem. 12, 13, 14. Listen, you got some grown folks that can't handle weed. How you think you're going to handle it at 12? How you going to manage weed and trigonometry? Show me how your grades go. Let me know how that's happening. Come on.
Verse 12. The time is come, the day draweth near. Let not the buyer rejoice, nor the seller mourn. For wrath is upon all the multitude thereof. For the seller shall not return to that which is sold, although they be yet alive. For the vision is touching the whole multitude thereof, which shall not return, neither shall any stand possessed of the iniquity of his life. They have blown the horn, and have made all ready, but none goeth to the battle. For my wrath is upon all the multitude thereof. The sword is without, and the pestilence, and the famine within. He that is in the field shall die with the sword, and he that is in the city, famine and pestilence shall devour him.
And so this is what's happening. And again, this is talking about in Jerusalem, but I want us to understand that this is what's happening right now. The sword is devouring without. I don't need to explain that because that's clear. They said over 4th of July weekend, there were, I don't even remember the number of shootings.
Where?
All over. No.
Oh.
Over the country. They said it was like 800 shootings.
Yeah.
It was like 800 shootings with 140 dead. And out of that 140 dead, I think like 28 was in Chicago. It was like 14 in New York. Over a weekend, 800 shootings. No, excuse me. 800 shooting victims. 800 people got shot. At some point. So that's the sword devouring without in the field for those people who are outside. And then it says in pestilence and famine is devouring within. And the pestilence and the famine is all of the different issues and problems that we have. The fact that parents can't speak to children. The fact that children have a complete lack of respect for parents. Complete lack of respect. I remember when I was younger, and I mean, I got beat, but I probably got beat as much as a whole lot more than other people got beat, but it is what it is. You dealt with it, right? You got beat, you got a marker, and you lived. But one thing that I remember, your mother asked you to do something. If you thought to roll an eye, if you thought to suck a teeth, oh, man, I got to do this now. A what? And that's the part that children aren't understanding. And that's the part that parents right now are like, if this was a couple of years ago, ooh. But you don't want to, but it seems like I don't think children get beat like we used to get beat. I don't think it happens. I don't think it happens. And so because children don't get beat, they think that it's okay for you to do what your mother asked you in your time. And that's kind of part of what's taking place here. So now you have this fragmentation that's happening because it's split, because parents are conflicted I don't know whether to throw you out or punch you in your face.
Should I go Rambo or not? Should I go Rambo or not?
And kids are like, what would I do? You know what I'm saying? And kids is like, what I do? You start to yell too much, God forbid you grab them. And so kids think that it's perfectly okay to, do it in your time.
They saw.
You do it in your time.
They saw.
I'm just saying. And that's all a part of what's happening, but we don't want to talk about it. We don't want to talk about the disrespect that we allow to happen simply by not saying anything. And we allow it to happen. And I'm not saying kids are all bad.
Right. Speak on it. That's right.
I want y'all to understand. I'm not saying y'all all bad. I understand. What's happening right now is, unfortunately, y'all just misguided, because what happened is you've allowed the social media, and you've allowed social media and new TV shows to draw your understanding of how you should deal with your parent. And that's what y'all have allowed to happen. That part has infiltrated your mind, and I can guarantee you almost any parent that I know that came up in the 30s, we're going to go with 80s. Any parent that came up in the 80s are looking at you like, you just don't understand.
But they that shall at all escape of them shall be on the mountains like doves, and of the valleys of all of them moaning, every one in his iniquity. All hands shall be slack, and all these shall drip with water. They shall also gird themselves with sackcloth, and horror shall cover them, and shame shall be upon all faces, and baldness upon all their heads. They shall cast their silver in the streets, and their gold shall be as unclean as an unclean thing. Their silver and their gold shall not be able to deliver them in the day of the wrath of Jehovah. So now, if you stop right there, because so what's happening is, when they said that they blew the horn, that's not the blowing the horn to take a warning of something that's going wrong. That's the horn blowing for them to get ready to go to battle. But it says everybody was weak at the knees, so even though the horn was blown for people to go to battle, nobody wasn't going. Because they was all weak at the knees and everybody shook, because the Most High God had his hand in all of this. Most High God had his hand in all of this. And you could see clearly, and I'm trying to draw the parallel from this portion and now, because you can see the difference. And when it comes to stuff like this and battle and war and all of those different things, listen, you know what? I've been in my share of whatever I've been in, and that's my business. And I had to deal with it, and I thank the Most High God that I got through it. But what I'm saying is, when you look at the generation now, no disrespect, but y'all just not really built like that.
At all. At all.
When you see a video of two people shooting at each other 3 feet away and nobody gets shot, y'all not really built for this.
At all. At all.
Y'all not really built for this. Come on.
They shall not satisfy their souls, neither fill their bowels, because it hath been the stumbling block of their iniquity. And as for the beauty of their ornament, which was set for pride, They made the images of their abominations and their detestable things thereof. Therefore have I made it unto them as an unclean thing. And I will give it into the hands of the strangers for a prey, and to the wicked of the earth for a spoil. And they shall profane it. I will also turn my face from them, and they shall profane my secret place, and robbers shall enter into it and profane it.
So I just want y'all to look, because what happened is a lot of times we took solace in sanctuary in the fact that we could go to God's house and that was going to be a safe haven.
Right.
And God is showing them, and you could see that God is showing us now that I'm not going to allow y'all to allow my house to be a safe haven when y'all disrespected it. So he said, I'm going to allow the robbers and the pillagers to come in to my house in my secret place. Guess what? The Holy of Holies, where if anybody other than the high priest walked into the Holy of Holies, they would be killed immediately. That's what God said. And yet, God allowed Nebuchadnezzar and a bunch of filthy foreigners to walk in and take everything that they wanted and did nothing. Because he sent them. Come on.
Make the chain. For the land is full of bloody crimes, and the city is full of violence. Wherefore I will bring the worst of the nations, and they shall possess their houses. I will also make the pride of the strong to cease, and their holy places shall be profaned. Horror cometh, and they shall seek peace, and there shall be none. Calamity shall come upon calamity, and rumor shall be upon rumor. And they shall seek a vision of the prophet, and instruction shall perish from the priests, and counsel from the elders. The king shall mourn, and the prince shall be clothed with appallment, and the hands of the people of the land shall be enfeebled. I will do unto them after their way, and according to their deserts will I judge them, and they shall know that I am Jehovah.
Come on.
Chapter 8. And it came to pass in the 6th year, in the 6th month, in the 5th day of the month, as I sat in my house, and the elders of Yehuda sat before me, that the hand of Jehovah fell there upon me. Then I beheld in lo a likeness as the appearance of fire, from the appearance of his loins and downward fire, and from his loins and upward as the appearance of brightness, as the color of electrum. And the form of a hand was put forth, and I was taken by a lock of my head. And the Spirit lifted me up between the earth and the heaven, and brought me in the visions of Yah to Jerusalem, to the door of the gate of the inner court that looketh toward the north, where was the seat of the image of jealousy, which provoketh to jealousy.
So what God is doing here is God is actually doing Ezekiel a favor. Because what God is telling Ezekiel, go tell this to the people. God is pronouncing all type of destruction on the people. And Ezekiel, like most people, wouldn't, okay, but like, what's happening that's so bad? I mean, I see it's bad, but is it really that bad? So what God is showing Ezekiel is, and you'll see by the terminology that God uses when he's speaking to Ezekiel, that God is like, listen, look at this. If you think that was bad, guess what? Look at this. And now look at this. So what Ezekiel is doing is he's sitting and he's talking to the elders of Judah at his house, and God sends, and it says the form of a hand, but it's actually, this is the beginning of the vision. And God takes Ezekiel from where he is, and God is going to show Ezekiel some of the things that the children of Israel are actually doing.
And behold, the glory of Yah of Yisrael was there, according to the vision that I saw in the plain. Then said he unto me, Son of man, lift up thine eyes, now the way toward the north. So I lifted up my eyes the way toward the north, and behold, northward of the gate of the altar, this image of jealousy in the entry.
So the first thing that he's showing them is at the temple, at the house that Solomon built for God. When you look towards the north, one of the first thing that you see is they set up some type of image. And it's not an image that God has condoned or prescribed, but this is in the house of God. And stuff like this reminds me of, you know how you go in places? And I'm not a fan of division. I'm not a fan of people dividing and not being together, but I gotta say, I understand. Because if I'm going to a place of worship and I walk in and I see these images that start to look a little bit funny, I'm gonna be concerned.
Right.
I'm gonna be concerned. So again, I'm not trying to bash Judaism and all, but Listen, if I go into a place and I see all of these Jewish images and these Jewish practices, that's going to make me feel away. And I'm not a fan of division. I'm not saying that we should be divided, but I'm just saying I know me, and if I see practices that I feel are different than the practices that God put in place, that's going to make me weary of being able to worship. Because, and I'm trying to remember where I saw it. I believe it was in the Maftia's portion, which was the other Maftia's portion, which is in Jeremiah, where the Most High God said that what we did was we substituted God's ways for the images of the nations. And like, you can't have both, right?
Nope.
So it's either like, so if God has a prescribed manner to fast for atonement for Yom Kippur, then that's the prescribed manner. And any other manner other than that, regardless to what your intention is, any manner, any practice other than that manner is not godly, and therefore it has to be evil. Because it's a substitution of what God said.
A replacement.
A replacement for what God said. So it's not, so, and I think that's, we don't know, like, it's easy for us to recognize when you say you coupling Jesus with God, and it's easy for most contemporary Israelites to say, yeah, that's coupling Jesus with God. Okay. It's easy. For some of our brothers, it's not so easy. But that is what it is. But that's easy for a lot of us. But yet, we don't have the same vision when it comes to substituting Judaism and Jewish practices for God and putting them together. But we don't have the same vision. But in actuality, it's the same thing.
It's the same thing.
Whether it's Jesus or whether it's Allah or whether it was the Baalim or whether it was Malcolm or whatever, whoever it was, whenever you put other practices with God's practices, then there's an issue.
Come on.
Because you're either going to have one or the other. It's like when Elijah said, how you going to hold between two opinions? Either do this or just do this. And it's okay if you're not going to do this. Just go do what you do and just do it well.
Yeah, that's it.
But you're not going to put them together. Come on.
And he said unto me, Son of man, seest thou what they do? Even the great abominations that the house of Israel do commit here, that I should go far off from my sanctuary. But thou shalt again.
And so we wonder why God isn't in the midst. See, I think we hear about God and we read about God, but I don't believe we believe the stuff that God say is true. God says stuff like, who asked you to trample my courts? I do not accept iniquity with the solemn assembly. God said that. And God meant that. I don't believe we think God meant that when he said it. I think we just think that that was just an anomaly or poetic. When God said it, he meant it. And so we wonder when we call, can you just imagine? And I know this is the stuff that we don't like to talk about. But this is the fact is this is actually what, when you had that portion with Elijah, this is actually what happened. Can you imagine drumming till your hands bleed? Can you imagine singing till your voice is hoarse? Can you imagine jumping up and dancing and doing all of that and God is not listening? Wow. Can you imagine that? And I know we don't think about it like that, but that's what happened with the Baalim, right? It said it was real easy for Elijah to joke about it and said, well, maybe he not hear you. Maybe he's using the bathroom. And it was easy for Elijah to recognize it. Well, was it easy for them? No. Just think about it. God's way is perfect. And you can't add anything to it. And you can't take anything away from it. You can't replace it. You can't substitute it. You can't do none of that. Come on.
But thou shalt again see yet greater abominations.
But you see that, right? And that's what he's saying in Ezekiel. He said, you know what? You see, you came in. You see the image that they had that's provoking me to jealousy. That's right at the north gate. But don't even worry about it because I'm going to show you some more. Come on.
And he brought me to the door of the court. And when I looked, behold, a hole in the wall.
Another door.
Then said he unto me, Son of man, dig now in the wall, And when I had digged in the wall, behold the door.
This is for those people who go and they do their stuff in the dark. And they do their stuff in secret. And they think people don't see me, but God do. This is for those people who do their stuff in the dark and they tuck their fringes in. Or you know what? Some people have gotten so intelligent that they be like, I'm going to this place and I know this place ain't righteous, so I'm going to just take my fringes off because I don't want to disrespect God. And you go in these types of places and you doing these types of things. And God told Ezekiel, you know what? There's a hole in the wall. Dig through the hole in the wall and look and see what these people are doing that they think they doing in the dark. Come on.
And he said unto me, go in and see the wicked abominations that they do here. So I went in and I saw. And behold, every detestable form of creeping things and beasts and all the idols of the house of Israel portrayed upon the wall round about.
And you know, well, keep going.
And there stood before them 70 men of the elders of the house of Yisrael. And in the midst of them stood Yaazniah and the son of Shaphan, every man with his censer in his hand. And the thick cloud of incense went up. Then said he unto me, Son of man, hast thou seen what the elders of the house of Yisrael do in the dark? Every man in his chambers of imagery. For they say, Jehovah seeth us not. Jehovah hath forsaken the land. He said also unto me, Thou shalt again see yet greater abominations,
you know
which
what?
they do.
You saw that? Don't even worry about it. I'm going to take you to another spot, and I'm going to show you some more. Come on.
Then he brought me to the door of the gate of Jehovah's house, which was toward the north. And behold, there sat the women weeping for Tammuz.
So I want to talk about what Tammuz is. Tammuz is, and if you have a Jewish calendar, you'll actually see Tammuz was last month. Because new moon was last night, Tammuz was last month. What Tammuz is Tammuz is actually a very ancient Babylonian god. And Tammuz has taken on various shapes and forms throughout the years from its inception up until this point right here. Up until this point, in this contemporary history related to Babylon, what Tammuz was Tammuz had morphed into being the god of agriculture. So more specifically, the god of grain. And what the conjecture of it was when the grain is taken and it's thrashed for food, that means that Tammuz died. And so when you see right here, and it's talking about the women that's weeping for Tammuz, that's what they're weeping for, because the wheat had just been thrashed. And in essence, according to this religious practice, Tammuz had died, and that's why the women are weeping. Come on.
Then said he unto me, Hast thou seen this, O son of man?
You saw this?
Thou shalt again see yet greater abominations than these.
Don't even worry about it. I'm going to show you some more. Come on.
And he brought me into the inner court of Jehovah's house.
Another part of the house. And again, this is a vision, but this is another part of the house. Come on.
And behold, at the door of the tent of Jehovah, at the door of the temple of Jehovah, between the porch and the altar, were about 25 men, with their backs toward the temple of Jehovah, and their faces toward the east. And they
so now,
worship.
hold on. Before you read that part. So now you will wonder, right? If you already at the temple, and Solomon's prayer is that the reason that we face towards the east is because that's the direction of Solomon's temple.
Yes.
That's why we face towards the east.
Amen.
So in this particular case, they were already in the east. So they were already at the temple, so there was no reason for them to face towards the east. But they still facing towards the east. And the reason that they facing towards the east is not because of the temple, but it's actually because they're worshiping the sun, which is also another ancient practice that probably originated in Egypt. And so now, I talked about division earlier, right? Just think about it. They even still divided now, because you got one group that's divided and they're praying towards this God. You got another group that's praying towards Tammuz. You got the 70 that's inside the temple and they're praying towards this God. And now you have this 25 and they're praying towards the sun. Still divided. Even in evil. Come on.
And their faces toward the east, and they worship the sun toward the east. Then he said unto me, Hast thou seen this, O son of man? Is it a light thing to the house of Judah that they commit the abominations which they commit here, and that they fill the land with violence, and provoke me still more? And lo, they put the branch to their nose. Therefore will I deal in fury. my eyes shall not spare, neither will I have pity. And though they cry in my ears with a loud voice, yet will I not hear them.
So God is showing Ezekiel, he's like, listen, this is why I'm upset. This is why I'm angry. This is why I'm not going to show pity. For these reasons. So now this is God's response in chapter 9 to all this. And so again, for all of those people who think God accepts everything, for those people who think you can do anything you want and God is going to forgive you, chapter 9, please.
Then he called in my ears with a loud voice, saying, cause ye them that have charge over the city to draw near, every man with his destroying weapon in his hand. And behold, 6 men came from the way of the upper gate, which lieth toward the north, every man with his weapon of destruction in his hand. And 1 man in the midst of them, clothed in linen, with a writer's inkhorn on his side. And they went in and stood beside the brazen altar. And the glory of Jehovah, and the glory of the God of Israel was gone up from the cherub, whereupon it was to the threshold of the house. And he called to the man clothed in linen.
So I find this interesting. This is actually very interesting terminology, because it says, so it's saying that the glory of the Most High was on one of those angels, on the cherub. And it's saying that the glory came up off that cherub that it was on, and it actually went in front of the glory of the house, in front of the door of the house, and then it started to speak to the cherub and to the rest, to the 6 from the glory, from the door of the house. Come on.
He called to the man clothed in linen, who had the writer's inkhorn on his hand. And Jehovah said unto him, go through the midst of the city, through the midst of Jerusalem, and set a mark upon the foreheads of the men that sigh and that cry for all the abominations that are done in the midst of them.
Because in everything, and in all his anger, and in all his fury, God is always still just. Come on.
And to the others he said in my hearing, go ye through the city after him and smite. Let not your eyes spare, neither have ye pity. Slay utterly the old man, the young man, and the maiden, and the little children and women, but come not near any man upon whom is the mark, and begin at my sanctuary. Then they began at the elders that were before the house.
Okay. So what's happening here is these 6 men that God had, one of them had a fountain pen, an ink pen. And God told him, go around and mark out everybody who don't like what's happening. Mark out everybody whose heart is for God, whose ways are for God. Mark out all of them. And he told the other 5, go immediately after him and kill everybody else. That's what it says. Mark out the right ones and kill everybody else. I'm talking about God. I'm talking about the Lord of hosts. I'm talking about the one who caused you to wake up this morning, the one who we believe is compassionate and merciful and all that. He said, mark out the ones that are right and kill everybody else. And that's why I tell you that he's the one that's merciful, all compassionate, because at least he gave the opportunity for the ones who are right to be saved in the midst of everything else. Come on.
And he said unto him, defile the house and fill the courts with the
Start
slain.
at the house. Come
Go
on.
ye forth. And they went forth and smote in the city. And it came to pass while
So,
they were...
hold on. And so I just want to say, so what God showed Ezekiel was just the stuff that happened, that was happening in the house. That didn't even include everything else that was outside the city. That was just the stuff that was happening right at the house. Come on.
And it came to pass while they were smiting and while I was left, that I fell upon my face and cried and said, Ah, Jehovah God, wilt thou destroy all the residue of Israel in thy pouring out of thy fury upon Jerusalem?
So listen. So I want you to listen to what's happening. God, so the angels, and this is similar to Jeremiah. And in the sense that when you read Jeremiah, when Jeremiah was upset with the elders because they sought to do him harm after he prayed for him, Jeremiah said to God, he said, don't hear their prayers. He said, do everything that you said you was going to do it unto them. And God showed him exactly that. So when you read the book of Lamentations, Lamentations is Jeremiah being upset and hurt at all of the death that he was seeing that God was bringing forth on those people for their wickedness. That's what's happening with Ezekiel right now. Because God showed Ezekiel everything that they was doing. Because guess what? We people. And this is my way to say, a lot of times we think that a punishment can be worthy of death, and we don't want to put him to death because we want to be merciful, so we want to give him something else. And so this is Ezekiel here, and Ezekiel knew all of the abominations that they did. God started killing people, and Ezekiel is still like, well, when you going to stop? Are you going to kill all the residue of Israel? Because Ezekiel still had compassion. And God told Ezekiel multiple times, I'm not going to have pity. I'm not going to have pity. But Ezekiel, he heard it, but then he was seeing it, and it was two different things. It was two different things. So, and then can you just read 9 and read God's response?
Then said he unto me, the iniquity of the house of Yisrael and Yehuda is exceeding great, and the land is full of blood, and the city is full of resting of judgment, for they say, Yehovah hath forsaken the land, and Yehovah seeth not. And as for me, also my eyes shall not spare, neither will I have pity.
So now, this is God's response. God's response is because they think I'm playing. Mm-hmm. And they think, it said earlier on in the portion, it said, they believe that God won't smite. And God said they think I'm playing. So he said, I already told you. I'm not going to have pity. But what God did do was he did the right. And for those who were right, he allowed them to be saved. But for everybody else, God is like, I'm done. And that just brings me to the last point that I want to talk about before we close it out. Because I want to talk about loyalty. And so I'm going to start my statement with this, and I'm going to finish my statement with this. We don't owe loyalty to anybody except those that are right and to God. That's all you owe loyalty to. So I'm glad I got to the point where I could say this, because like if I would have said this when I was around for like 5 years, people would have been like, yeah, you've been around 5 years, you don't know nothing. In 10 years. But I've listened to teachings for over 25 years. And during the course of that 25 years, I've heard some of the worst and warped concepts of loyalty that I've ever heard about in my life. I've been told, I've heard that loyalty means that you continue to put your strength into people who physically hurt you.
No, sir.
And that's what I'm told loyalty is. I physically hurt you. I harm you. God say you can't call the police on me. That's what I've heard. You know, I drove through the middle of the night. And this is how deep this concept about loyalty goes. And this is why I want to talk about it. I drove through the middle of the night to get one of my loved ones out of an abusive relationship. I drove through the middle of the night to get her out of an abusive relationship because her boyfriend had just knocked out her teeth. And when I got there, she called the cops on me.
What?
That's how deep this concept, this false concept of loyalty goes. When I was younger, there was these gang initiations, right? And in order for you to be involved in a gang, they had to jump you into the gang for you to be down with the gang, which in essence meant I can kick you, I can swell your eye, I can beat you down, and then you do nothing. And once we are done doing that, then now you and us have the right to do it to somebody else. Gang mentality. So I'm going to just say this for the record, because I know there are different groups of people, right? There are different groups of people, and some have more self-esteem than others. And I recognize that. You have groups of people where some people are stronger than others. And I understand what happens is these warped concepts of loyalty actually work on people who are a little bit less strong. Those warped concepts of loyalty work on people who don't really have what it takes to stand up for themselves. But I can tell you, I got some friends, right? I know some friends that I've been through a lot of things with, and I ain't gonna even say nothing about nothing. I'm just gonna say I got some friends that I've been through a lot of things with. And we ain't never put our hands on each other once. Am I right? I mean, except when we was playing ball and they couldn't hold me in the post. So, but that's a little different. That's a little different. Who we have the obligation to be loyal to is God and those who are right. That's who we have the obligation to protect. What was it? Last week, the Boy Scouts settled for $850 million. $850 million. They settled with, hear me, tens of thousands of sex abuse victims that the Boy Scouts had victimized for $850 million. Who are you supposed to be loyal to? Like, the people who are the victims, aren't they the ones that we should be protecting? Aren't they the ones that we should owe our loyalty to? That when we look at them and we say to them, you know what? Stay with us. We're going to make sure you're taken care of. And that we mean it. Don't we owe our loyalty to them? Finish it up.
But I will bring their way upon their head, and behold, the man clothed in linen who had the inkhorn on his side reported, saying, I have done according to all that thou hast commanded me. Hallelujah. Hallelujah.
So the only thing that I'm going to say in the face of that is God said. And I don't say this with any type of malice, but I do say it with a sternness. God said, and I will bring their way on their own head. So when you see these different things happening, as much as from a human perspective, I feel remorse and I feel a way when I see people hurt, when I see people dying, when I see young boys shot, when I see young girls shot, beat up, jumped, or whatever it is. From a human perspective, I feel that. But I also have to understand and acknowledge that God is still king. All honors, praises, respect, acknowledgement, and thanks I offer unto the great King of the universe, to the God of our fathers, to the God of Abraham, the God of Yitzchak, and the God of Yaakov. Thanking him for all things and thanking him for everything. Shabbat Shalom, Nicole.
Shabbat Shalom.